What is the point of go-kart racing? I mean, for so many of us, it's almost an embarrassment to tell people that we race go-karts. The general public thinks that we're all running around in those big boxy rental carts that they ran one time at their cottage. So what's the point of the whole thing? Let's get into it. Go-karting is one of those things that it's hard to pin down how people feel about it. But racing, actual kart racing, the general public rarely even knows that it exists. Or if they do, they don't think that they even know somebody who does it. It's such an unusual hobby to have. But what is the point of it? What is the actual point of go-kart racing? Most of us think of karting as the training ground for the next generation of motorsports. I mean, certainly kart racing tends to advertise itself that way. But when you actually break it down, success in go-kart racing has very little to do with somebody's ability to get into racing cars, let alone professionally. I mean, sure, every modern F1 driver raced go-karts, but did they have success in go-karts? Where did they race them? Did they win? Did they lose? How did they move to the next step? As an official in kart racing, I regularly experience parents who think that their kid is on their way to F1. All they need is a karting win, a championship, another season. There's always one more season. And there's always some team or some mechanic or coach telling them this is what they need to do. This is how they're going to get there. Another championship, more seat time, more this part, this engine, this builder. But it's very easy to miss the very obvious question that nobody is asking. Why would skills in go-karts translate to a car? Any car. The more time you spend perfecting your kart racing, the better your skills at kart racing become. It's a specialization. In fact, teams I have spoken to directly in very recent time all say the same thing, that when they actually do get a new driver in who has kart racing experience, they know, based on what that driver drove in karting, the kind of bad habits that they're going to have to break them of. Now, karting can teach you some very fundamental basics that are going to translate into any car, or bikes for that matter, snowmobiles. But even within karting, the specific skills in each class are specific to that class. The way that you drive a four-cycle kart is not the way that you drive a rocker Rotax, which is not the way that you drive a shifter. I actually got to race the very first RM1, which became DD2, that came into Canada with Russ Bond, who most of you, if you don't know who he is, you should know who he is, especially here in Canada. And it was completely different driving that RM1 versus the Rotax and the Honda that I was driving regularly in, I believe it was the Ron Fellow series at the time. What you need to do is find out how to get experience that will directly translate into what you want to do. Now, one of the best ways to do that is do your homework, find out the race teams that are involved in the kind of series that you think that you can get into, and ask what they're looking for. Now, if that race team comes back and says, hey, you need another year in karting, okay, fine. Get yourself another year in karting, stay in contact with them. You know, you follow that advice that they've given you. But what you're more likely to hear from that race team is they want more experience and 150K. It is the unfortunate truth of racing that money trumps all other considerations. And if they tell you that what you need is experience and 150 grand, they want experience in the type of car that you're trying to drive, the type of car that they run. They're not usually talking about go-karts. In fact, it is far more to your advantage to take a year off or 2 years off from karting to put the money together to get yourself in the position that you want to be in than it is to spend whatever budget you have on another year of karting. There is a significant number of professional race car drivers who have taken a year off to put a deal together before they came back in. They didn't go out and spend money that they didn't have to go ahead and run a full season of SCUSA. They kept their money for the type of series to get themselves where they wanted to be. You got to figure out how to get yourself some seat time. And one of the best is going to be a racing school somewhere. There's lots of racing schools. There's teams that have seat training. You need to figure out how to get yourself that kind of experience. And the biggest hurdle, the highest hurdle that you're going to have to get over is going to be that money. And it doesn't matter what race team you're talking about, from karting all the way up to Formula One, it all has to be paid for somehow. Now, at this point, you might be asking, well, what's the point of go-kart racing in the first place? I mean, why race karts at all? If you live for competition, for speed, for trying to dial in perfection, to overcoming adversity, to get that corner just right, to learn how to get that setup just perfect, how to tune that engine, the technical side, the problem solving, the genuine art of actual racecraft, there is no better form of motorsports in the world. It isn't the bottom rung of some fabled ladder where if you don't make it all the way to the top, you're somehow a failure. If it was, it would mean that the winners and the champions would always move on, and that almost never happens. No. What kart racing is 3.5 Gs, a quarter inch off the ground, rubbing wheels at over 100 kilometers an hour with one disc brake on a solid rear axle. They turn on a dime and stop like Mack trucks. You got just enough power to get in trouble, but not enough to make up for a mistake. And one little mistake is enough to cost you a win. May not always get the fanfare of other motorsports or even the respect that it deserves, but it is a damn bit better than watching the vast majority of car racing in the world. Because in karting, people race because they love it. It's where they want to be. It's where details matter, where mistakes can actually hurt, where families still race, where we can battle it out on the track for a cheap plastic trophy and laugh together after the checkers fall. The bottom line is, if you have a dream to race cars, then you need to focus on getting there however you can. But if the racing itself is what you love, then there is no better form of motorsports. Everything else just adds complexity and weight. And a bill. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and share. Put any comments in the bottom you like. And as always, I will see you at the racetrack.